Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where it's about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of In the Dark. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I don't know how to describe it. This episode was so weird in just the way it was structured, and just not in a bad way. It was just interesting because this episode was almost, I don't know how to describe it. Especially how they did cinematography wise, how a lot of the camera work in this, unless the focus is on Murphy and everything else, and everyone else's faces are blurred because it's everything's out of focus except for Murphy. And I think it's supposed to kind of reflect that whole I think it's almost supposed to make you put you in Murphy's shoes of the world, at least for us it's the world's, for her the world is dark, but for everyone else but the way we see it, it's blurry, and it kind of represents the whole her being alone thing, because even later on when she was asking to do hey, was Jess on the bus, can you describe your friend, and she had to struggle with it because she's she's shorter than me, brown hair, because she doesn't because all she has memories of Jess are a Jess when she was 14 years old. Well, Jess, when her and Jess were 14, that was her last memory. So, but the fact is, so it's in this moment realizing I don't know what anyone looks like, it's just because she's always had someone by her side, her entire life she's had Jess, or at least someone else, mainly Jess, but at least somebody around her. Now she's kind of truly alone, and I think that adds to that, this episode feeling very I don't know, claustrophobic isn't the right word, but that's how it made me feel. It made me feel uneasy, her being alone like that. It made me uneasy, worried for her, because I'm she's been on her own, investigating stuff before, but at the very least, there was always someone she can get in contact with. She can't call Felix, she can't call Jess. If she tried to call Max, he wouldn't pick up regardless, even if her phone was working. So it's she's kind of cut off from everyone, and it's scary. And obviously she's asking people for help, trying to be all right, am I supposed to take this bus right here? It's yeah, it'll get you here, but it'll get you later because she needs to get to an airport before Felix ends up taking off. So, and then she's trying to ask a lady can I get an Uber to, can you help me get an Uber here? But it's no, you don't have enough money because that's pretty far away, and the Uber won't take you with how much money you have. So it's just one thing after another, and then she meets a kid named Michael. Now, something that didn't cross my mind until the end of the episode, it's not a one-for-one, but part of me wonders, is being around Michael, did it kind of remind her of being around Tyson? Because Tyson was around the same age. They're 16 years old. Michael's 16 years old, so is Tyson. Well, it's Tyson, so I talk about that before. I always get weird when I hear characters' names Michael. I'm not trying to be oh my god, I'm so narcissistic, I'm the only one with the name Michael. It just makes me feel narcissistic, because anytime I'm saying it, I feel I'm talking about myself in third person. That makes me feel it's a stupid little idiosyncrasy that I have, but it just makes me feel weird anytime. It gets in my head too much. I think about it too much. But initially, the kid's yeah, I don't want to go to school. I got a test to study for, so I can't help you. She's wait, your mom's working late. She's not going to get home until 2 a.m. Don't worry, you're going to be back by then. It's she's I used to be worried. I used to be like you, worried about doing everything wrong in front of my parents. And then I went blind when I turned 14. And when I was 14, I was blind, and I stopped caring. And he's yeah, but that kind of, I'm not blind, so that doesn't apply in my case. But she's talking about just kind of letting everything go. So drive me there. It's my grandmother's funeral and stuff like that. So which immediately when she started bringing that up, I'm you're a terrible person, Murphy, lying about your grandmother's funeral. Because I guess you want to make it, because you can't tell the truth, or right, my friend's waiting there. I think you could have told the truth, but if you had to be. I think Murphy's used to telling lies to kind of get her way. I mean, it kind of fits with her personality and everything, too, but still. And the kid just kind of all right, Michael. But I also think it's so interesting that while he's kind of finally accepting and stuff like that, the camera, finally focuses. And I think, that's supposed to be the thing of right, here's someone else coming into my world. It's right, I have an ally. I'm not alone. It's supposed to make you feel like that, because that's what Murphy's feeling. That the world isn't as dark, that it's not as blurry, that there's yes, it's not a face she can make out, but it's metaphorical in that sense. I think that's actually kind of really interesting how they were able to structure that. And so Michael is leaving. I was like, the moment they're pulling out the driveway, I was like, please don't actually hit something. But it's like, no, the drive there was actually pretty smooth most of the way. And I was like, it's actually fascinating because I didn't think about it. I started thinking about this later on in the episode too. I'm like, this is like, for one, this episode could be a movie in its own right. Just like with just all the shenanigans that kind of go down. Like, it has a little shenanigans, but kind of serious. Like, this could be a movie in its own. But then I also start thinking, it's very Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And it's like there's actually parallels to Ferris Bueller's Day Off that you could draw too in this. And I wonder, was that kind of some of the inspiration for this episode in that regard? But I think he's like, oh right, you've been blind since you were 14, so you don't know how hot you are. And she's like, wait, you're 16. Ew, don't talk about it. She's like, even if you weren't 16, I wouldn't. He's like, I'm gay anyway. She's like, oh. Okay, but he's like, still, like, you shouldn't talk like that about someone. And it's like, right, I'm using this whole, like, going to this airport thing, like, as an excuse to hook up with someone. It's like, oh. He's like, yeah. It's like, how is this person? It's like, this person's, they're going to meet me after work. And the moment that he said that, I was like, that could be a teenager, but that sounds like an adult. It's like, how old is this person? 31. She's like, 31? He's like, yeah, but, how old does he think you are? 19. I'm like, oh, no, that's... And she's like, I know I'm not your mom, but, like, I would think your mom wouldn't be too happy about that. Because, like, Murphy was talking about, like, oh, freedom, do whatever you want to. And then the moment she gets in the car with him, then she does care about him. Because it's like, I think it also comes from the place of, like, right, she's known someone about your same age that got murdered for vastly different reasons. But, like, she doesn't want you to be in a situation where you get murdered. Because that seems like a very dangerous, jacked up situation that could end up happening, like your rendezvous with this dude that you don't even know. Even at one point, he ends up buying weed at the gas station. I thought was really like nerve-wracking when the guy was staring at Murphy's ID. You're like, that's not good. But the moment like he was following afterwards, I was like, she left her ID, didn't she? I was like, it's nothing creepy. It's just that she left her ID, and like. She started panicking because I guess she was worried if it was someone like whether it's like, hey, maybe he's just some psycho from the gas station who's legitimately following us, going to try and kill us, because she's in a very panicky mood. She doesn't have Jess or anyone there to calm her down to be like, no, it's nothing wrong. Like she doesn't have any of her family or friends around her, so like she's panicking. And Michael's like a 16-year-old because at the very least, Jess has lived most of her, like her and Murphy had been friends since forever, so she knows like Murphy's tics and quirks, so she would have been able to kind of work around that. Michael's a 16-year-old who doesn't know what the hell he's doing, plus he's getting high, and it's just like they end up smashing into something, and the guy's like, oh, here's your ID, like, do you want me to call the cops or something? It's like, no. He doesn't want the cops to be called. Murphy doesn't want the cops to be called because that could be a whole hinky situation in its own right. But obviously for Michael, he's like bouncing back and forth because he's feeling like, once again, very Ferris Bueller's Day Off, because like literally the end of the movie with the car situation and everything. Once again, the parallels you can draw. He was freaking out. He's like, my mom, and he's like, and he's blaming himself because like I was curious whether Murphy was ever going to tell them the truth of like, right, we're not actually going to see my grandmother's funeral or whatever. He's like, I'm terrible. I'm using your grandma's funeral as an excuse to get laid. I'm trying to I used it as an excuse to smoke weed and try to lose my virginity. And she's like, no, it's okay. She's like, you know what? Go home. Because I think she started feeling guilty because it's like, right, you're beating yourself up about a lie I told you. You're stressed out thinking that this is about plus it's like, you're a 16-year-old. I shouldn't have dragged you on in this. Like, yeah, we were having fun. We're kind of hitting it off like buds. Like I said, I think there are parallels to like Tyson that were kind of drawn a little bit. Maybe whether she'll admit it or not, part of me wonders, was that kind of crossing her mind? But it's like, right, you take this taxi, you go, well, first and foremost, let's get some of the alcohol I bought and let's rub this down, But like, yeah, they were kind of buds after all this. Like, even to the point before he left in the taxi, he hugged her, because it's like, right, you can make some argument that like the car was stolen. That way you don't actually get in trouble. So it's okay. She knew like, right, I dragged you into all of this. I kind of convinced you. And now like, right, you're a 16-year-old kid and I shouldn't have done that. Like, because I think it's also a thing of like, right, I'm the adult in this situation. So it's wrong on my part, which I kind of see that as well. But still, it's like, and I still thought it's kind of messed up that you kind of left her all alone. But then he eventually comes back. He's like, Murphy, I mean, well, Laura, was it Lori? And it's like, she's like, Michael? He's like, yeah, I'm back. He's like, the fact of the matter is I called my mom. She's like, whoa, you did it? He's like, yeah, but regardless, the fact of the matter is I'm going to tell her who I am. I'm going to be open to her. I'm going to tell her I'm gay because he hasn't told his family that he's gay. Like, Murphy is like, he's like, aside from like small chat room areas on the internet, Murphy's the only other person he's ever opened up to himself to. So in that regard, he's like, the moment my mom gets here, I'm going to be honest with her. I'm going to tell her who I am, because for him, it's like the pressure of always trying to be this perfect person, but I'm never able to just be myself. But I want to be myself. I want to stop living a lie. So I'm going to tell my mom who I am. And then I'm not getting in the car until she drives you to the airport. She's like, really? You're going to do it? He's like, yeah. Then he also tells her like her phone situation until she like switches out like the SIM card or whatever, like the phone isn't going to work. So it's like, right, he's a little nervous and everything because Murphy was trying to give him an out, but it's like, right, you came, she felt good because it's like, right, I was kind of worried I was alone again, but now it's like, nah, you got my back, Michael. And his mom rolls up and it's like, she's like, what's going on? And it's like, and I was like, okay, the way he's acting nervous, I was like, is he actually going to tell the truth? I was like, please don't tell me you're going to lay it on Murphy. And what does he do? He lays it out on Murphy. He tries to cushion the blow by being like, yeah, she was kind of like getting me to drink or stuff like, or she was drinking in front of me and she's the reason why I smell like weed because she offered it to me and stuff. She's like, what, you were getting high and drinking in front of my son? Murphy's like, yep, apparently I was, And it's like, understandable. He's a 16-year-old kid. When you're a 16-year-old kid and something like that, you stole your parents' car, you crashed it, you were smoking weed. Like, you're a teenager, so you're like in overdrive. You're like, oh my God, my parents are going to murder me. They're going to kill me, blah, blah, blah. You're going to think that, which, you would be in deep shit, let's face it, but, because even he had that whole thing about, like, oh, my mom's a bitch, and it's like, his mom rolls up, she's like, oh, I love you, are you okay? And in that moment, it's like, oh, I think it's just because in that moment, he powered down where it's like, he was so hyped up, like, I'm going to tell everything, it's like, oh. And even Murphy would be like, yeah, I don't think you know your son as well as you think you do. And so he didn't open up about anything, and even, like, his, like, Michael's mom being like, you know what, I should call the cops on you. He's like, no, don't do that, just let this go. And then they pull off and he's like, well, I got her phone. She's like, we're not gonna waste another minute here. I'm like, oh dude, that sucks. And his head leans against because like legitimately he said like hanging out with Lori was like the most fun he's had in his entire life. He did legitimately mean that because he was able to just be himself and have fun. But now he's kind of have to go back. Like I said, in its own right, this would be like the third act to that movie. But then like it have some like happy resolution. You would think at the very, very end of like, nah, it all works out. But because this is a TV show and this isn't some isolated movie, it doesn't work like that. There's no like happily ever after, but like he felt guilty because I think it's like, for one, I'm like, right, I'm back to this life. I threw everything at her and blamed her when I'm the one that, yeah, Murphy pressured me into it, but she was the one telling me not to smoke. She was the one like being like, I don't want you to go here to hook up with some like pedo or whatever. Like, so for her, for him, it's a situation of like, right, she had my back and at the moment I didn't. I think eventually he'll probably end up telling his mom the truth. I don't know if he'll ever circle back to that story. It might be just like a one-off of like, right, that story is whatever it is in this universe. I don't know whether like his mom will actually change her mind and end up calling the cops or not. I don't know, because that could be an issue, because that could eventually lead Josh and Gene to because they know the general area of where Murphy and them was last, so this could kind of that could be something that comes back later on. But Murphy on her own again, no cars helping her, she's left there all night and stuff. It's like, oh, because I'm sure Michael never convinced her, like, it's even making him feel even more guilty because it's like, right, she's trying to get to her grandma's funeral because Murphy never told him the truth, so that guilt's eating away at him even more, and it's like, there's a part of you that's like, he's a 16-year-old kid, I don't want to hold it against him, but there's another side of me is like, you screwed Murphy over, I'm super going to hold it against you. So makes you feel a little complicated, makes me at the very least feel a little complicated. So Murphy's kind of stuck, and she finds her way to a playground and she lays down and goes to sleep. And then Jess finds her. I'm like, whoa, Jess. I'm like, how did you, because we saw your circumstances at the beginning of the episode, you were kidnapped and everything, but then she was like, I don't want to talk about it. I was like, oh, you murdered that dude and got away or something? Like, what's going on here? It's like, she doesn't want to talk about the circumstances. But then, like, Murphy's like, I didn't stay in the same spot because of this and that, like, and then she basically breaks down everything that happened, and then Jess is kind of like, whoa, I spent all this time worried about you and you fell asleep. You don't care about me. I'm like, for me, I was like, what the hell are you talking about, Jess? That's some BS. Like, she freaked out to this point that she was trying to trying to get the feel. But I guess it's the argument. It's like, you didn't try looking for me. It's like, she did. Like, for one, she's limited in what she can do on her own, too. But I guess the argument to that could also be like, well, you investigated a murder a lot on your own. Not all of it on your own, but some of you investigated on your own. You kind of were able to do that. So it's like, you can do so much for other people and yourself, but not for me. Like, I can see Jess's point. Not trying to say, like, Jess shouldn't feel the way she feels. Like, it's not like like, Murphy doesn't really appreciate me. I do so much. I've always done so much for her, and it's just never been reciprocated, at least in her mind and everything. Like, for her, it's like their relationship is always one-sided. She gives and gives and gives, and Murphy takes, and gives nothing back. And, that's the whole thing. But in that moment, I was like, but she was also trying to get to Felix so she could get in contact with Felix and let her know, like, because at the very least, she knew where Felix was. She didn't know where you were. So that's why I was like, that's some BS. Like, I get, once again, Jess has every right to be mad, but it's like, but also Murphy throws it out there. Like, I didn't tell you to kill Nia. She's like, you didn't have to tell me, Murphy. I would have. Like, I would do anything for you. And she's like, fine, I guess you would have been better off if you had let me die or whatever. And then you're like, Jess punches her. I was like, oh, shit. She's like, okay, no. I'm sorry. She's like, I'm just joking. Like, it's okay. Like, see, it's all good, And I was like, wow, she's bleeding from her mouth like that. And then Jess is like, look at me. She's like, Jess, I can't. I was like, the moment she's saying, look at me, I was like, because the moment she was also like, I'm not here. I was like, oh, this is all in Murphy's head. And so at that moment, she, Jess isn't there and she wakes up. And it's like, so it was all a nightmare. I'm assuming that's her own guilty conscience because she does probably know, like, that is how Jess feels. And, like, that guilt is driving her anymore because she doesn't know where Jess is. And now it's like, she's panicking all over again because, like, I don't know where Jess is. I have no idea. Because in the dream, it's like, right, I found you because I had, put a tracker in your teddy bear. She rips the teddy bear apart and like, there is no tracker to it. It's like, right, there's no way Jess is actually going to find me, and I don't know how to get to Felix because he's most likely already on his plane. Like, I'm lost and I'm alone and I don't know where anyone is. Seeing her panicked and scared like that, it breaks your heart, And so at the very end, we see, like, and I couldn't remember his last name, I couldn't remember his name last episode, but obviously Josiah, he's the one that has Jess. The question is why, though? Because Darnell made that deal with you of, like, leave them alone and he'll hook them and protect them. But I guess it's like, they're a bargaining chip because it's like, right, I'll keep other people from killing them because I guess by kidnapping him, it's like, right, I am keeping my promise. The people that work with Nia want them dead. That worked with Nia that want them dead, like, they won't be able to get to them if I have them. So maybe there's something there. Like, maybe he still needs something from them, and he's kidnapping Jess to get it done, or maybe this is some bargaining chip to use against Darnell. I don't know. It's unclear what that's all about. And obviously Jess is freaking out. So to see those parallels of, like, Jess freaking out, and obviously the same thing with Murphy. So maybe next episode we'll catch up with, like, Max and Felix and find out what they're up to. Maybe not. I'm basing that on nothing because I didn't watch the preview, so I could be completely wrong. But I am very interested to see how Murphy's going to get out of this situation. Once again, it's a somewhat shenanigan-filled episode, like, once again, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, just a little more heartbreaking because of different circumstances. But yeah, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.